Okay, perfect. So again, just welcome to everybody. Welcome to today's webinar. So we will now start. We will now get going. So let's check what we have in store for you guys today. Obviously, the main topic is the new timeline animation feature that we have just released recently. Now, firstly, I just want to introduce your hosts for today. So myself, I'm David Rožac, but more importantly, we have also Matic Pelzel here. He is the senior product manager that actually overlook the entire timeline project. So in a way, you will have the source here available for all of your questions as we go along. Now, in terms of agenda, we'll keep it fairly straightforward. So we'll do a quick introduction to the actual timeline animation. Then Matic will do a proper live demonstration for you guys that should highlight all the key benefits and advantages that timeline animation brings. And of course, we'll try to cover all of your questions. Feel free to type them in at any time during the webinar. We'll try to get to them as we go along, but probably we'll answer them at the end. So we'll have a slot reserved just for that. So that said, let's just continue and quickly glance over this introduction to the key features. So with timeline animation, really the key idea here is that we want you to be able to do effortless animation, from start to finish. So for that, we implemented really powerful, yet in a way simple features that will allow you to build compelling animations. We all know that animation really is what can make a big difference in terms of how the creative looks and feels and how users interact with them. So hopefully with this tool, you will be able to create, the really most suitable, perfect animation for your creatives. Then, of course, we wanted to simplify your life in a way. So we implemented a workflow that's based on scenes. In this way, hopefully things should be simple, but still it should give you ample control over the various individual properties. And that, is supported by the second key innovation, which are keyframes. Finally, of course, additional features like moving, copying, cutting, pasting different keyframes across objects will help you stay efficient and do things in a very fast pace. Finally, I think probably one of the features that was on our bucket list for a very long time was the ability to preview animations as we go along in the builder, and you will be able to do that now as well. So this was just a quick introduction here. So from here, let's move to the live demo, and I will pass on to Matic. So Matic, are you with us?
Yes, I am. Thank
Fantastic.
you, so, as David already mentioned, timeline was a long time in the making. We're very proud of it. And let's just jump into it. So, timeline lives in the layers panel. So over here, this big window here, and you'll see some extra space on the right, which is this black part over here. And it comes with a new button, which is the Add Scene button, and scenes are basically the new thing. With this new, with the timeline comes some new concepts and terminology, which I'll explain now. So we divided the layers panel into layout and scenes. Layout is the previous layers, and it's basically where you define your objects. This is where your assets live. This is where their defaults are defined. And then scenes, which is on the right side, is where you animate the defined objects. So let me start with a really small introduction here. So let me take a shapey, put it on the right top corner. This is now being added to the layout, and it's just a normal layer like like before. But we have this option here. So let me add a scene, move the playhead, move our shapey and replay. So this is how easy it is to create an animation right now. You will see these diamonds here, which represents the keyframes, and keyframes are points in time which hold values of object properties. And each object, which is the shapey in this case, is basically represented by different properties, which are, size, position, rotation, and opacity, or visibility if you use the hidden keyframe. So in this case, we just used X and Y because we're moving on a diagonal axis. We can preview by scrubbing the playhead. We can also apply easing, which would be on the keyframe itself. And you can use all the previous settings. So the one thing that we've added is a keyframe is now a selectable object. And let me just demonstrate the easing here. So, that's the basics of it. What we just did was automatic keyframing. So if I now move the playhead again and move the object, the keyframes will be added automatically. So like that. You can also, select and delete all of these and put the playhead on a very specific location, which is 1 second, for instance, and type in a specific amount like this in the field, press enter, and it will be added as a keyframe. All the fields that can be animated are outlined green. This is basically to indicate they are animatable properties. So let us do something, I don't know, for Y too, like 300. So now we have space to replay. And you can again preview. So if I would want to add one here, but with the same value it has now, I can also double click or just click in the field on the little diamond icon. It does the same as double clicking. You can select the icon, you can select the keyframe, press delete, and delete the keyframe. This is like a very quick intro to timeline. So let me delete everything and start with our actual demo. Go away. Let me open our assets. We have our assets here. Let's select all the assets and drag them onto Builder. There we go. And what we did is we have a background and we have a foreground which we will animate. The background will be a parallax effect, like a camera going from somewhere high up to ground level. So we call this a parallax or a vertical parallax, if you will. Let me see which one is which. I think it's 1, 2, 3, 4. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. This is the first one. Yes. Okay, so I will rearrange this in a manner from up to down. This is 0, 0. Let me just order them. So what I'm doing is nudging them with my arrow keys to change their position, like that, and like that. There we go. And I'm hiding them because it's a bit easier for me because there's so many. Okay, and now the last one over here. There we go. So this is our default layout, which is always, the default position and settings for every object that we have. And this is their initial position. So that's why I did everything in layout. Now I will add a scene, move the playhead a bit, name the scene. Let's call it background. Okay, and start moving our backgrounds around. You will notice, or you can notice, that the selection bar is now green, which indicates, you know, you're animating. Let's do it like this, and do this one a bit more, and this one even more. There we go. Now the last one. There we go, but not too much, so we don't have any whites. Okay, so this looks now good, but a bit rigid, right? Because it's very linear. So what we can do, one very cool thing is just command select the first keyframes like this, go to the keyframe info panel and select, let's say, ease out, right? So they slow down at the end. Oops. This looks better. There we go. So our background is more or less finished. We can make it a bit longer if we wish by selecting all the keyframes here like this and just dragging them a bit out. And this is a longer animation like that. Now, what we want to do is add it like an overlay on top of it, which we'll do with a shapey. And notice that I've been moved back to the layout mode because I've added a object, and if I want to set the object to, let's say, black, which we will use, and for it to keep this, it needs to be in the layout mode. It needs to be set in the layout mode. So now I will, resize it to its correct size and position it correctly like this. But what we need to do, we want to fade in this black overlay. So we will set its opacity to 0, because this is how we want to start the overlay. Oops. Opacity. And we'll go back to background. And let's say we want it to start fading in here. We'll select the layer. We will click on the opacity because we want it to start with 0 and move it to, let's say, 60%. And what we get is a nice fade in. So with this done, let's add the let's add our logo and our backpack. There we go. Logo should be 1515. There we go, and the backpack kind of over here. I think that's fine. Okay. We will also, well, let's do this first. So the backpack and the logo, this is their end position, and I want them to kind of stay here. So I'll go to my scene. I will set my position where I want the backpack to kind of end up and the logo. Like this, command select. I'll do Y because, you know, I want it just to move on the Y axis, and I will do opacity. This will add it to both. I will do, this is basically it. I will go back to layout, and I will select the opacity of this is the backpack. Let's say we don't want to do it here, but we want to do it here. 0. So this will now fade in, but we want the position of the backpack to be lower because we want it to slide in. So I will click and drag down so it's not visible anymore, like this. And this means that it now comes in. But it's a bit weird because it's not eased in. Let's do both. There we go. It's a bit fast, so let's make it slower. And we don't need opacity, obviously. And on this one, we don't need the position. So now the The logo will fade in. The backpack will slide in like this, perfect. But I wanted to do it later. So I will select the position, which selects all the keyframes in its property and move them. Like, let's say like this. There we go, perfect. Okay, so the last thing we need to do now is add the text, and we will do it with a taxi, which will also dump us into the layout mode. So we will start with, let's say, set the font, choose next, bold, and 24. There we go. Oh, and it's white, of course. There we go. We will duplicate. And again, for the last one, because we want every line to animate by itself. And maybe this is a bit bigger. Maybe this is 32. Yes, it's 32. Yeah. That, nice. Okay, align them, command select, align. Okay, so that was a mistake. Selection, and now align. There we go. So this is our desired layout. We will move it to the position we want it to. Kind of like here. We need a button still. There we go. Align it to everything else. Selection. We don't need it to be round, and we don't need any weird gradient. We'll just do a red like this. There we go. Copy the hex and do the same for down. Paste. There we go. Okay, we need to change the CTA, which I think is CTLs, and it should be in the same font, right? So A linear, and it should be medium. Okay, 45 and 140. There we go, it's nicely aligned. So let's say this is our end layout. We can still kind of move it. Let's move it a bit to the right. There, and just move it. I'm moving it in layout, so when I'm animating it, it's mirrored. So right now, I want all of this to be at this position again. At this time, I will do Y, and I will do opacity. So this will add, both. And then I will go back to layout, and I will set everything. Oops, wrong button. We'll set everything to opacity 0 because we want them to fade in. And the other thing I'll do is I'll move them for 30 pixels lower. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So right now, they come in together. It's kind of slow because the keyframes are so far apart. So let us fix that. Kind of like that. Let's see if that's faster. That's faster. Okay. The other thing we need to do is stagger them. So to stagger them, let me just move the button down here so I have the right. So this is the third one, and this is the first one. Okay. There we go. 1, 2, 3. Okay, there. So we want this one to start first, and then the other ones. So let's do it like that, like that, like that. And then the last one is the button, which kind of overreaches there, like this. So let's go back. Okay. There we go. It's missing some easing. So we can again just click on all the first keyframes, set it to, let's say, ease out. There we go. It's much nicer. So this would be our, like a basic, or let's say animation-wise, a bit more advanced, but a basic intro scene like this. Now what we do is we're happy with the animation, we're happy with everything. We go save. We open our, where are you? Events and actions. And we need a page for that. We need a new action. Play scene. Select our scene, which is the background. And save again. Close. And now we can preview. And there we go. That's our ad. Close this up. One thing I haven't mentioned yet is that a scene has properties. So one of these properties are, what the scene will do after it reaches the last keyframe. And by default, it will stop. You can set it to rewind, and you can set it to loop. We can set it to loop, by default, it's indefinitely. We can say 3 times. We can save, and if we load, it will do it 3 times. It'll just jump back like that. There. Obviously, we didn't prepare it to loop, but it's what it does. So I think this is everything for the demo. We can go and start the questions.
So as I was just mentioning earlier, feel free to type them in the questions panel. You will find it in the GoToMeeting interface. And we have a few already. So let's just kind of go through those. So yes, first question for you, Matitz, how does the looping work? Do all the animation need to end at the same time?
Oh. I'm not sure I understand the question. So the loop, what it does is basically this: the playhead comes to an end, and then it will jump back to the first frame and do a play again. So if you want a nice loop, that's what I meant by the being prepared for a loop. Is that I would at this point I would fade out again into 0%, so it doesn't jump to this. Basically kind of finish it like a GIF, so you don't see the jump. Not sure if that answers the question. But,
okay. Yeah. Maybe let's do more answers as we go along.
Yes.
So perhaps connected to this one, can the animation be user initiated? For example, with a rollover or a click?
Yes, of course. Yes, of course. So a nice thing I like to demo here is so we have one scene and we've seen the preview. So let's say we want to add another scene and start it from where the previous one left off. So this is it. And we want it to just move everything out of the viewport, even the background, whatever. So this is what will happen, right? So now I'll go back to let me just close this, back to the events and actions, or layout rather. I will click on the button. I will add a play scene, and I will select the next scene, or the other scene I've just created. And this is on tap, okay? I will save. But first I remember I need to do this so it doesn't loop. There, that's it. Let us preview. And now the next scene is initiated by me when I click on the button. There we go. Hope that answers the question.
Fantastic. Fantastic, really nice. All right, we have another question regarding animations. So how would you create a scenario like this? So we have a starting animation that plays a inline video, and then the video finishes, and that triggers an end animation.
Well, we can use the end video event and just trigger a scene on end event, on that event.
Yeah, perfect. Do you think could you
Yeah.
do you have an asset so you could show us?
Let me see if I have a. I can find a video here. There we go. Oh, but this will be an inline video now. Okay.
Yeah, it
I
should
think
work
it
for the
has to be.
purposes.
Yeah. Okay. I don't know if. Okay. Let me just try this. This is our video. Yeah.
So
Don't
yes.
get scared too much. Let's do contentful video, autoplay, events in action.
So the key thing you were saying is to create a to use the complete video event.
Mm-hmm. There we go. Video complete, new action, and then you just use basically play scene, which is, I just deleted that scene, but this is how you would do it basically. If it's autoplay, it'll play by itself, and when video is completed, this scene would trigger. So yes, you can do it. You can even do it, on pause if you want, basically on any event.
Perfect, fantastic. So it seems this is concluding this roll of questions. Perhaps maybe Matisse, one thing to comment on is what are our plans regarding transitioning from animations via the events and actions panel and animations in timeline.
So the plan is to slowly transition into the new way of creating animations. The old system will keep on working. It will not just disappear. The old system is scheduled for deprecation or sunsetting, but we will keep it working mostly indefinitely. But it will not be available to use after June 1st, I think, or June 4th. But in the old creatives, which are already created with it, they will remain working. You just won't be able to add it in new creatives.
Perfect. Yeah, so guys, I think this is an important message. So keep in mind that, from the beginning of June onwards, you will only be able to use timeline animation to create animations from that point onwards. Good. So I think we don't have any questions left to cover. So I think it's worthwhile pointing out our support resources maybe. So Matisse, if you want to show us that as well, where you guys can then actually go and find, many relevant information so that, when you do start working with timeline, you will be able to cover those questions directly. You should find a good description there, like the one that Matisse is now showing us. And also you have a proper guide that was created purposely just for this specific feature as well. There we go.
So this is the basic article which will teach you how to use the timeline. It's basically what I just told you, but a bit more, in depth. This is the article that covers how to create the effect in more detail, and this is an article that it's more of a guideline article to kind of how to use animation and in which cases and how to get the most out of it.
Perfect. Okay. So it looks like we have one more question and then we'll wrap up. So would cue points to trigger actions in inline videos still work in a scene? So cue points to trigger actions in inline videos.
Cue points to trigger action. Yeah, it should work. It should work.
Good. Okay, perfect. So look, guys, with this, I just want to thank you again for joining us today. Um, please do use timeline animation. Please do let us know what you think about it. Any feedback is always welcome. We always strive to make the best products possible for you guys. And of course, in the meantime, if you get any questions, just submit a ticket via our support and we'll get back to you. That said, again, thank you for joining us and see you on the next one. And thanks to Matisse especially.
Thank you guys. Bye bye.